Welcome to Leading Your Culture with Bill Nye. This episode is brought to you by Multifamily Media Network, delivering the latest news, ideas, and inspiration across the multifamily sector. Now let's go ahead and jump into the next episode of Leading Your Culture with Bill Nye. Well, thank you for joining another episode of Leading Your Culture with Bill Nye. I'm your host, Bill Nye, and we have a special guest joining us today. We have Savas Karas, who is the Chief Operating Officer and the Chief Transformation Officer for CAPREIT. And so he's coming to us from Maryland today. So Savas, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Bill. It is an absolute pleasure to be here. I appreciate you inviting me on. I'm excited to be here.
Well, anybody who's ever watched an episode of my podcast knows how much I love to talk about leadership and culture. It's the only thing I talk about on my podcast, although I could fill a whole podcast talking about baseball, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. And so I'm really intrigued and excited to have this conversation with you because you understand the value, the power, the impact that leadership and culture makes, not only on the outcome, the bottom line of an organization, but also on the personal lives of everybody within that organization. So I want to ask you a question. When did this become something that you said, this is important? I need to build my career around this. Was there a moment? Was it just sort of, something that happened over time? Kind of talk us through that a little bit.
Sure. So 1991. The answer is 19, which seems like a long time ago to me. But my very first job was with one of the big four accounting firms. So graduated, super excited to move into the management consulting ranks with one of the big four firms. And when I got there, it was interesting to me because you come in as a consultant, you're a consultant for 3 years, then you move to a senior consultant, then you move to a manager, senior manager, partner. That was the ideal goal. And when I got there, I remember being there a couple months and somebody said to me, "This is a great place to be from, but not a great place to be." And I remember that to this day.
Huh.
And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I don't know why that person thinks that way. This is the best place in the world. And it became very true for many, many, many of us who started. And what I realized was that culture was not the right culture for me. So I left that firm. Went to another management consulting firm, loved their culture so much that I decided to start my own consulting firm and stayed in management consulting for 24 years where I could directly impact what we delivered organizationally. So I agree with you that culture is ultimately what will get you through the hard times, and it's what people gravitate towards, right?
So we were talking before we started recording, and you were talking about if you solve the people problem, you solve the problem.
Yeah. So,
What do you mean by that?
So it's interesting to me. And this is especially true, I think, in multifamily, is that we are in a people business. Like we are in a person business. People have a very direct impact on our success or failure organizationally. And if not just organizationally, but it can be property by property, right? People have the ability to impact positively or negative, hopefully positively, the lives of other people. And when there is an issue, we need to look at the people that are driving the issue. And if we can understand the person and we can understand the issue, we can typically enact a resolution that resolves it. But it takes the time, and this is the problem I think that all of us face is time. It takes the time to understand the person. And we are always faced with trying to figure out something quickly. And I'm a Six Sigma Master Black Belt. One of the things that I learned early in my training is this concept called Gemba. And Gemba means to go where the work is done. And it is very much focused on finding the closest person to the work and understanding the work from their standpoint. And when you do that, I would say that almost always what you gather from that and what you gain from that is not only telling, but it's insightful in how to solve the problem. So getting close to the person and getting close to the issue, I think gives you amazing insight into the most effective or most efficient way to enact change.
So for anybody who's watching this, I'm going to say that the thing that's important for them to understand is what you just said, as true as it is, because I believe it to be very true. I built a career around that concept. Um, it's it requires a tremendous amount of patience. It takes a lot of time. I use the example of when and you're a parent. You have a child or children, right?
Correct?
And so none of your children were born with the ability to walk, talk, write, think for themselves, care for themselves, right? Um, what's the age of your youngest child right now?
20.
Okay, so, and that 20-year-old is still figuring out a lot of things about life, correct?
Yeah, I have twins that are 23 years old. It's interesting and fun. It's actually one of the things I love most is watching them figure out life and still having an impact on them. Like we will talk
That's right.
now and it's a different conversation.
Yeah,
It's about work. Hey, I'm going
right.
to I'm going to write an email. What do you think of this? How should I approach this problem? I love the fact that I get to interact with them on that basis. That's incredibly meaningful for me both as a parent, I think, and as an executive, and also what I want to impart in them. And I take that same approach with the people that I work with, right? There are certain pieces or certain concepts that I really want them to grab hold of. And it's just like parenting, like you have to say it 5,000 times in order for people to listen, right?
Uh, yeah, and that's exactly my point. Is it requires this tremendous amount of patience, and so what you just really said is that you're still developing your 23-year-old twins. There's still
Oh,
growth that is
absolutely.
taking place. 23 years of your life given to developing these two other human beings, and recognizing 23 years later you've made a lot of progress. You're very proud of the progress that you and they have made, but there's still work to be done. And so
Absolutely.
I think the temptation for executives, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the temptation is we run out of patience. It isn't coming quick enough. The results aren't coming quick enough. We live in, if I need a charging cord for my phone, I go to Amazon and it's on my front porch today. If I
Correct.
want hot food, I stick it in a microwave and 45 seconds later I have hot food. And so if I want to improve our NOI, our rent growth, our retention rate, our lead management. I don't want to spend time developing people to improve those numbers. I want them right now. I think that's a struggle for most leaders, if I'm being completely honest with you.
Yeah, I used to have a plaque that hung over my desk. It said, good, fast, or cheap, pick two.
Say that
Oh,
again.
wait, good, fast, or cheap, pick two.
Pick two. Yeah. Okay. Sure.
And And of those, I will tell you the most expensive one is speed. And if you own a sports car, you understand what I'm saying. It is
Yeah.
very expensive to go fast,
Right.
right? It's way
Yeah.
more
Right.
maintenance, things break, tires wear out. It's crazy, right? But that's the sacrifice that you make for being fast. But if you're organizationally fast, and other organizations are not, tremendous benefit to you. Tremendous benefit to you. Google had a program that was called Fast Fails and Quick Wins, right? And what they focused on was the speed of failing fast and cycle times, right? Because if I can fail faster than you, I will learn more than you. And by learning more than you, I'll learn how to succeed. And my cycle times, if I can shorten them, I will have much greater success. And I see this. I'm on the board of a hospital. I've been on the board of hospital now for over 20 years. What I always look at is, what are the cycle times for healing? What are the cycle times for medications to be effective, right? If we can shorten those, even if they don't work, at least we know to move on to something else, right? We'll learn
Mhm.
something and then
Yeah.
move on. It's the exact same thing in management. The best thing that we can do is get up today and fail at something, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to waste more time going down that path. I'm going to try something new. And if I have good staff around me, my staff are going to give me really good ideas, right? And if I have somebody close to it, going back to Gemba, if I have somebody close to it, I'm going to have the real details around it. We got into student housing back in January, and we just had our students move in. And our regional manager and our on-site team and our national service team, they did an absolutely amazing job of going down there and turning all of these units in just a couple weeks. I mean, it
Uh-huh.
was an amazing process to watch. And I've had the benefit of talking to that team. And I said, what did we learn from it? And we had a meeting about it. But I said, more importantly, we need to have a document. And I'm like, we need to start this today while it's fresh. We need to write down what we learned, what worked and what didn't work. Because A, we'll forget. B, we may have turnover. People may transfer out, right? We're not going to have the same group next year that we have this year, right? So we should have that institutional knowledge, and paper never forgets, right? So let's write it
Right.
down and let's go back to it, and let's calendar something that says, hey, back in January, when we're planning for this again in August, which I know sounds like a long time, but that's how long it takes, put the link to the document so we all have
Mhm.
it, right?
Right.
So that amazing team, right, who was super close to the work, have a great amount of knowledge. My role is to learn from that and to make sure that we organizationally retain that knowledge. So when we go to do it again, we're better at it. We can do it faster, right? Less expensively. We can figure out a better way to do it, and we'll get better over time.
So how do you create or grow within your culture this to support what you're saying, this sense of, if you're a leasing agent and you have an answer, that leasing agent can get their thoughts and ideas to the right person and actually be heard. Because what I found is a lot of organizations, they sort of silo that, it's like, well, problem solving, fixing our problems, coming up with our new ideas, whether it be technology, process, whatever, that's reserved for the people at the corporate office, the executive level,
Right.
the directors, the regional managers. And you've got this super bright maintenance tech or the super bright leasing agent who has seen something and said, this doesn't make any sense. There's a better, more efficient way of doing this. How do you get that to where that becomes prominent in the organization? Because I think that's a challenge for a lot of companies.
It is. And it's it's an investment of executive time, but we are rolling out huddles. So I am doing a huddle with every community manager and every service manager every single month. It's a commitment
And
of
when you say
time.
you mean you personally?
I mean, me personally, I'm starting
Okay,
them.
good. Yeah.
I am,
Yeah. Good for
I
you.
may not, I may not be able to make every one, but my intent is to start all of them, right? Because there is value. And again, culture is a one-on-one issue. It really is. People experience culture. People experience culture in two different ways. There's the organizational culture, which is me as a leader driving and pushing what I think that we need to do to succeed, right?
Sure. Of course.
But in reality, and I'm conscious of this, right? I'm only effective about 20% into the organization because there's a lot of people that I don't talk to, right? So what I really need to do is drive into the people that are getting into the other 80%, what our sense of mission and vision is, right? What we are trying to do, and more importantly, how we are trying to do it. And I'm conscious of that. And I understand that that's a one-on-one struggle, and it's a one-on-one struggle of executive time. It may not always be this, right? It may not always be that I have to be on every single huddle, right? I have plans to put other people in because I also think it's important for other people to hear what they have to say and for the people that are on the huddle to hear from other people, right? I I I don't think I have all the answers. I know that I'm fallible. I know that I will try things and things will fail. I want to have a culture that allows other people to try things. If it fails, we should fail quickly, hopefully, right? And we should find out why and we should do it better the next time. That is something I think that we need to give people grace to do. And if you can have that culture, and if you look at the great companies, the companies that have been highly profitable and have been highly successful, they allow that. They allow people the opportunity to, I'll say fail, but to me, it's not a failure. It's really just a learning cycle. They allow them to go through a learning cycle, right? And what the great organizations do and what great employees do, what great staff members do is they help manage up. Because my success ultimately is really based on the information other people are giving me and their view of what is happening. So I lean into people that tend to know this, right? And tend to want me to have the information that I need to not only help them, but also to lead at a higher level, right?
Yeah.
And what I will say is you need to manage up. You need to manage up and let your leaders understand in as the most efficient way possible the information that they need to make decisions.
I used to, when I, sat in your seat as a company COO, I used to say to the team all the time, I have no success of my own.
Yeah.
It's like an 8-man crew,
Yeah.
like the movie Boys in the Boat. You put me in
Yeah.
that boat by myself, I'm not going anywhere. But you put me in that boat with 7 other people and a coxswain who understands the goal, the vision, and they share the passion, the drive, the commitment, and the willingness to put in the hard work. Man, we're gonna skim across that water like a machine. But, it's
Correct.
interesting. As I talk about culture and how it's something that you grow. And, I often talk about how if you wanna have a better yield, um, you need to plant things in your garden that don't produce any fruit, but they attract the pollinators. So for instance, last year I had a very bad yield with my bell peppers. And so I planted flowers in my vegetable garden near my bell peppers to bring in the pollinators. And those pollinators then would go over to the pepper plants when the blossoms were present, and they would pollinate my
Yeah.
pepper plants. And I'm still picking peppers. I've had the best yield I've ever had. And one could say that those flowering plants in my vegetable garden, they're like the leasing agents or the techs, where other people will say, well, they don't belong in this meeting. They don't, well, what do they know? Well, they may not produce any vegetables, but their input and what they bring to the culture is going to help us have a better yield than we've ever had before. So let's expand and let's hear what other people have to say and how they can contribute. They don't have to look exactly like a pepper plant or be a pepper plant to help my peppers to grow, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, just going back to what we've talked about, that takes time. Takes time to
Right.
plant the flowers. You have to
Yeah.
tend to them, even though again
Right.
they may not have any value in the flower itself. But you realize that you have to invest in it, and you have
Right.
to build. You have to build. I'll say your gardening time, right? But your culture time. Knowing that, you have to invest in that and you have to build it.
I,
It's a process.
I think for our audience, Savas, I think the key is to be intentional. To,
Absolutely.
to don't just throw seeds in the ground and hope you get something that you like. Be intentional. I intentionally planted the flowers in the garden that I planted. I was very intentional about that because it served a purpose. It was all part of the process. And I think that's the key. And I think sometimes as leaders, we get so focused on maybe a down month from a financial standpoint, or a bad report, or a shift in the market, that we stop being intentional and we start being reactive.
We call that organizationally the shiny thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it is a conversation about, what is the shiny thing and what are the things that we should be investing in, right? And I'll give you a good technology example. I remember when blockchain was super important and everybody was looking at blockchain and how does blockchain impact my company. Um, Nobody talks about it anymore.
Right.
I remember having conversations about all sorts of different technologies, right? That they're just not relevant anymore. And if
Mhm.
we had invested the farm, if we had gone heavily into some of these things, just like
Mm.
if we had gone into certain areas, right? Then we would not be where we are today. So understanding that, and again, that's culture, that's discipline, that's I've looked at the data and I'm confident in it and I can move past the noise. Matter of fact, I don't even move past the noise. I don't even listen to the noise, right? The noise is not part of what I am looking at, but I'm also conscious of understanding what may impact me. Like I'm not blind to things, but I'm confident in my approach. Organizationally, that's super important because it cuts down on the amount of non-productive work that organizations go through. I am convinced, genuinely convinced, that 50% of the work that all of us do has no value. No value whatsoever. 50% of it, right? And there's probably another 20% of it that we end up doing. And that work has what I call temporal value. So, hey, I have to get this done and I give it to you. But Bill, you don't do anything with it. And one of my favorite things to do every year is to send out an email that says, you're getting these reports. Do you
Mhm.
use them?
Yeah.
There's a
Great
cost to
point.
them. There's a
Right.
cost to them, right? And if you want to if you really want to have fun with it, tell people you're going to charge them. I'm going to charge you $10 a report. Is it worth for you to get it? Right? You won't be doing anything. It's the best way to cut down on reporting and nonsense and allow people to focus on what's important to them. Again, because we have finite time, right? We have
Mhm.
finite time
That's right.
and
Yep.
we should be investing in what we believe, going back to the garden example, what gives us the greatest yield.
Yeah.
And we should be
Uh,
and we should be dogmatic about it. Like we should
I,
fight out, keep all the noise out, right? Like fight for it.
yeah. Listen, I've gone through that exercise with reports, and you'll have one person who says, "Oh no, I really love this report," and you've got 350 people, 500 people in the organization. One person likes that report. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not keeping this report going because one person likes the report. I mean, but listen, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think meetings are the same way, where we have meetings that yield absolutely nothing. There's no productivity. And I'm not saying that organizations don't need to have meetings. Clearly they do, but everybody complains about being in meetings that yield nothing in the end. It's like, what's the point? And I think that they too can become taxing on our limited time, just like these reports, as you meant. And man, you put yourself and your 5, 6, 7 top line people in a room with you. How much money are we spending to have that meeting? It better bring some.
Yeah, I see that a little differently. I will just
Okay.
so I I am appreciative of a meeting. What I really love is what I call the pre-meeting. So the pre-meeting is where I get a small group of people and I say, hey, we're going to have a meeting at 1:00 and we're going to talk about this. What are the key points and what do we think the answer is, and drive it, right? But going back to what you just said, the real trick is you don't need 6 people. You don't need 8 people. You need a couple people, right? So I am pro meetings, but what I am pro meetings are kind of curated meetings. I know the people that I need to get an answer,
Yeah.
right? I don't need everybody in a department. That's a waste. I get all that. Um, but I am a fan of getting people together to just talk about things. And I have had meetings where people will say to me, we didn't decide anything. And I go, right, we didn't. I think we need to talk about this 2, 3 times before we get to a decision,
Sure.
because we're all coming in with a set of ideas and thoughts. And what's interesting is, and you can track this, you can track the way that people change as they talk through these meetings. And if we had one meeting and decided something, I will tell you that that outcome is typically A, do what we're currently doing. That's almost always the outcome, right? Nobody wants to change. So
Right. Right.
change takes time, right?
Yep.
And what you're doing in those meetings, or you're giving people not only the permission to accept other ideas, but you're giving them time to think about them, right? Most of us, if I say, Bill, today I want you to not like baseball. I want you to move on to football. You're going to say to me, no. But if we have a
Right.
conversation and I say, hey, Bill, what sport do you think really aligns best to your life right now, given that you have limited amounts of time? And what if I could move something that you would enjoy that was 1 day a week for 3.5 hours? You'd be, oh my God, yeah, that's great, right? You need to be open to it, but it takes time to settle in. That's why when I say I like meetings, what I really like is allowing people the time to think and accept new things. And
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm a proponent of this. We have not gotten there organizationally. I am hopeful that we will. But leaders, to me, we need to have about a third of our time open. No meetings, time to think, time to look at new things, right? Somebody
Yeah.
sends me an email. I think, oh, this is interesting. Let me go research it.
Right.
That time is incredibly important. And I would also say that sometimes I put meetings into that, like research time, where I'll get the people that are close to it. I'll get the people that have the best view of it. And I say, let's have a meeting about this, but I'm not trying to decide anything. I'm really just trying to get, what are the facts around it? And then I know in 2 or 3 meetings, and that's intentional, right? That's intentional. I know in 2 or 3 meetings that we'll eventually get to an answer.
Mhm.
So, so a lot of my day is filled with meetings, but I, I have value in those meetings because I think it helps me lead better.
Yeah, I like the way you reframe that, and I certainly don't have any argument against that. I
Yeah.
completely agree with that, and that leads me to a next question that I find to be a struggle for people that hopefully will help somebody in our audience, and that is, do you find that as you're growing your culture, and it may not be what other people are growing, it's unique to your
Sure.
organization. You find that as people come into your organization because it's new to them, do you find that the culture starts to impact them in a profound way? They use different language, they behave differently, they look at things differently?
I hope so. one of the things that I look for is when people adopt my language,
Yeah.
and I hear the words that I think are important coming from others or seeing them in an email, I know that we've had success, right?
Yeah. The influence has landed.
Yes, yeah. And I have a 24-hour rule. And that is just simply I don't need an answer. I just know that you saw my email. And then tell me when you can respond to me, right? And the other piece that I fight against, and I really fight against this, is I always say wonder is bad. If I'm wondering if you got my email, if I'm wondering if you're going to respond to me, if I wonder that you care enough to get back to me, despite my title, right? Because
Yeah. Right.
it's
That's right.
still it's still a one-on-one relationship, right? Despite all that, if you care enough to get back to me, that says, I got your email, I can't get back to you for a week, does that meet your deadline? Or if somebody's really astute, they'll say, I can't get back to you for a week because, Savas, you've asked me to do this other thing. Can I flip flop these? And then it's on me, right? Then it's on me to understand the organizational priorities and their priorities and get them an answer, right? But I will tell you that one of the things that I lean on, I try and lean into, is speed. I don't want to have wonder. I don't want people to think that I don't care enough to get back to them, right?
Yeah.
Which organizationally, again, I'm fine with 24 hours. I think that's reasonable, but that's an organizational change agent to me. If we understand that others are expecting a response, even if we don't have an answer, right? We've now created an organizational obligation to have that. If
Yeah.
you can change that one thing within an organization, you will dramatically improve A, the way people think about you, B, the organizational efficiency that you have, and you will become faster, right?
Hmm.
And again, I'll say this again and
Right.
again, speed's the hardest and most expensive thing to have in business, right? Because it takes people and bandwidth.
Right. But going back to the analogy with the boys in the boat, you have your crew, and when they're all working in sync, that's a fast boat. Way faster than me trying to row that boat by myself. That's not a fast boat at all. So I
Absolutely.
like that. One of the things, Savas, I've often said is that in a healthy culture, the culture shapes the personalities. In an
Hmm.
unhealthy culture, the personality shape the culture.
Right.
So in an unhealthy culture, you have somebody at the top. Maybe you have a regional manager who's angry, who is maybe very cliquish, and they're just operating from a very unhealthy standpoint. People will begin to react to that personality, and rather than the other way around. And what you just talked about, people come into your organization at CAPREIT, wonder is a bad thing, and people begin to learn that, and they see the benefit of it, and they adjust and they embrace it. And to your point, they start using a lot of the same language and the same terminology. I lived in Japan for 3 years. I was stationed there in the Air Force, and they have a beautiful culture. It's very different from our culture in America. And and there's nowhere I'd rather live than America, but I loved my 3 years living in Japan. And I found that the longer I lived there, the more when I was off base out in the, traveling around the countryside, I found myself behaving like I was Japanese, mimicking their mannerisms and their traditions and their customs, not mocking them, but
Yeah.
paying honor and homage to them because I that beautiful culture of honor and respect and trust. I would take my kids to the mall, and they have malls there just like we have in the United States, filled with thousands of people. I would park on a Saturday in front of the mall in my van, leave my windows down, the keys in the ignition, take my kids, my two sons, into the mall, be in there for 4 or 5 hours, come back, and our van would be there, windows rolled down, keys still in the ignition. because nobody would dream of stealing another person's vehicle. It just didn't
Right.
happen in that country. Now, you live in the Baltimore area. Try driving into DC, roll your windows down, leave your keys in the ignition, and leave for 15 minutes. You come back. What do you find?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Your car
Right.
is
Yeah.
gone.
Sure.
And so, I saw the beauty of that culture, and it shaped me. I started to mimic the Japanese culture because I saw the advantages of fitting in, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. I am a fan, if you are traveling, of being a cultural chameleon.
Yeah.
And, it goes back to when in Rome, do as the Romans.
Right.
Completely. Right. You want to, as a leader, right, you want to be liked. Like, being liked is part of your job. Having your staff like you is part of your job. Caring about your staff is part of your job.
It's a huge part of your
That
job.
Absolutely, that is what it means. And I'm talking to people right now about what does it mean to be professional, right? And the table stakes, like the starting point, are the basics of your job, and you're good at it, right? That's no matter what your job is, you need to be good at those things. But what makes you successful and what makes you an executive or moves you into executive leadership are all of the other things, right? Can I manage up? Can I understand what our mission and vision are? And can I tell other people what they are? Can I keep the people that need to be informed? Do I understand profitability? Right? That's a key thing, right? All of
Right.
those things to me go in to being an executive. Can I communicate well? Can I do it succinctly? Right? Can I create a good PowerPoint, right? That gets my point across. But the other key piece to that is, can I keep the other people around me informed? Right? That's really what executive leadership is. It ends up being very different to me than like, hey, I'm good at my job. Great, you're good at your job. There's hate to say this, I'm surrounded by people that are great at their jobs. They're great at their jobs. They genuinely are. But there's a next level skill, right? There's
Yeah.
a next level skill, and you can see this. I'll give you an interesting example of this. You can see this in a relay race, and I mean like Olympic level relay race, right?
Okay.
You can take 4 good, great runners, Olympic caliber runners. You can put them in a relay. They will fail because they don't know how to give the baton.
Yeah. That's right.
They
That's where the
don't know
race
how
is
to.
won or lost.
That is where the race is won or lost. That baton
100%.
is where it is won or lost, right?
That's
So
right.
you can be the world's best runner. You will fail every single relay race. And that's a great example of teamwork, right?
That is a great example.
So a great relay team's work on is the baton handoff, right? And what if the person I'm handing it to doesn't grab it the right way? How do I ensure that they grab it, right? Those are the real pieces that go into what I believe are not only organizational culture, but organizational excellence, right? That we work on those handoffs. I had a fellow executive call me today and say, hey, I didn't know these 3 things. Can you and I grab 10 minutes a week so you can tell me what's going on? And I went, shame on me. I should have, I owed him that, right? And I should have told him that because they were personnel shifts, right? But
right.
what I really take from that is, okay, organizationally, because that's a one-on-one relationship. But what I would like to do is send it out to the whole senior team and say, organizationally, these are the changes that that we're going through, let me know how they impact your team. Because what's interesting is he came back to me and said, I need to know this because it impacts my team. And I didn't think far enough ahead. Right. But I've learned, I will tell you that is a change that will be imparted going forward.
Yeah, I love the relay analogy. I ran on a relay team on my high school track team, and our coach was we were one of the best high school track teams in the state of Ohio because we had a coach that was just he understood what you just said, and we would practice a handoff over and over and over. And he used to say, "We will win or lose this race at the handoff, not because you're
Absolutely.
fast." Yes. And he'd say this, you think you're fast? Look around. Everybody in the race is fast.
Yeah.
Everybody's fast. So we're
Yep.
going to be better at executing the handoff. So, going back to the meetings, when I would hold a meeting, I would, at the end of the meeting, I would always ask these three questions. What is the message that needs to be relayed to others? Who is the right person to relay that message? And when is the right time to relay that message? Because I think sometimes you can come out with information too soon, just as much
Absolutely.
as too late. And so, we would never end a meeting until we were clear about what was the message that needed to be relayed, who was the right person to relay it. Sometimes it'd be me, sometimes it'd be somebody else.
Sure.
And again, when is exactly the right time to release that information? I want to change gears very quickly as our time is running out. Everybody is all in on AI. AI is going to solve all of our problems. Anybody who's watched any of my podcasts knows that I don't see AI as the answer to all of our problems. I use the analogy that AI is a fertilizer. It's going to help our plants, but it's not the plant. Our people are our plants, if you will. That's the living thing in the organization. But it's interesting how I see AI impacting culture. People are starting to make major shifts. Companies, I should say, are making major shifts in their culture because they want to go all in on AI. I'd love to hear any thoughts you have on this because you're a tech
Yeah.
guy, so you probably have
Yeah. Yeah.
some very pointed thoughts.
Um, you, you know, I'm a fan, right? AI is going to improve. AI will never be worse than it is today. You
Yeah,
can
I,
so
I agree with
if
that.
you try it today and it doesn't do what you think, try it tomorrow because it is only getting better. But like all technology, it is a tool.
Yeah.
And we are in the people business. And understanding how that supports our staff and understanding how that supports our residents is incredibly important. And we will go through a cycle, right? Every technology um, goes through this cycle, and the first one is fear, and it's going to kill all of us. I think we're past that right now. I don't think we have the fear that AI is going to kill us all. But then we go through, well, AI is going to take my job. We will get through that as well, right? We'll see that, hey, AI is just a tool that is genuinely here to help me if I use it, and if it's managed well, it's just here to help. And then we will get to true productivity with it, where we will figure out what AI does well. We'll figure out how to make it do those things well, and we will use it to our benefit. But at the end of the day, it is a groundbreaking technology. And I told my wife this. I said, AI is so cool to me. Like, I wish I could go back and be 20. And nothing has made me want to do that more than AI, because I think
Hmm.
that the ability of it to do things, and it is amazing to watch it do things. And I just had the opportunity to hear the chief revenue officer of OpenAI speak. And it was a interesting conversation, and they are really looking at using AI, I think, in productive and beneficial ways, that the technology will help us. And I'm excited to see that. I am excited to see all the different ways that all the smart people use it. But I will say this, it's very interesting to me to be in a meeting and somebody says, we need to use AI. And I say, AI would absolutely help us. But what they don't understand is the work that goes into using that AI and all the foundational work. And we were just talking about this, about using AI to scan documents. Well, we have to have the documents. They all have to be in a somewhat common format, right? In order to make this fast, they all have to be in a common format. So now the question becomes, well, do we have them? If we don't have them, how do we fill them in? So it's not just turn it on and let it go. There's always work that has to be done. And again, I'll go back to the good, faster, cheap. The same thing applies with AI, right? You really have to be intentional with how you're using it and really understand it.
I make the analogy with AI, and I said this to somebody just a week ago. I said, AI is a cordless drill. I've got to put a screw in a stud. I've got two tools in
Mhm.
front of me. I've got a screwdriver and I've got a cordless drill. The cordless drill has a charged battery. I'd be a knucklehead to pick up the screwdriver, use
Right,
the cordless drill. But on the other hand, that cordless drill is never going to lift itself up and drill that screw into into that piece of lumber. It still requires me to be the one who drives, the final outcome. And I think as companies look at their culture, companies who are saying we want to use AI to improve the efficiency of our people, but our people are always going to be the cornerstone, the foundation, the reason we exist. I think those companies will figure out how to use AI very successfully. I see other companies who are looking for ways of this will replace a third of our workforce, and I see those companies tripping all over themselves trying to use something that, to your point, right now is a little clunky. I grew up on a farm and we had a John Deere Model A tractor. And that tractor was a beast. Top speed was about 9 miles an hour. So it wasn't fast. But you know how you started that tractor? It had a great big flywheel. And you had
oh
to
well, you had
grab
to
that
crank it.
flywheel and you had to turn that flywheel, and you hope that it started the first or second attempts because it took so much strength to turn that flywheel. But that was an early day tractor.
Sure.
And you look at tractors today and they don't have flywheels like that, right? They have air
Right.
conditioning. They've got, environmentally controlled cabs. I mean, you start it like a car. You don't even put a key in the thing. You just press a button and the thing starts, and so I think that was a good point that you made, that the AI we're working with today looks nothing like the AI we'll be working with in the next, few years. So I
And
think it was a good
going
point.
back to going back to your comment about putting a screw in a stud, I actually think that AI will be able to do that. I think that we'll create some little
Oh, it
robot
will.
that, yeah, that absolutely figures it out, and
Oh,
a
oh,
robot
absolutely
that
will.
that comes in and says, hey, you only have 6 screws in here. I can make this 25% stronger by putting in a seventh. It'll do the math and it'll put
Mhm.
it in. And the
Yeah.
beauty of that is it will free the person up to do something else. And where I see the benefit of AI within multifamily is giving our on-site staff the time to interact with residents, because that relationship is incredibly impactful on both sides. And if we can free up time to allow our staff to have more resident interactions, I think it's a benefit to everybody. I genuinely do. And that's the biggest impact that I hope that AI has.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that. I've always said that the multifamily business is a one-on-one business, one person, taking care of one other person, one couple, one family, but it is a one-on-one basis business, and I think that it always will be. And so I'm happy to hear you say it, because what I don't want is for us to lose our humanity. I think our
Yes.
humanity is the greatest gift that God has given us, is our ability to be human, and to be human means the ability to fail, the ability to make a mistake, the ability to get it wrong, but then the ability to learn from that and improve and get better. And I think that's what great leaders do. I think great leaders have a tolerance for people making mistakes, not for failing necessarily. And I think you understand what I mean by the difference in the difference between those two. But I think great leaders have a great sense of humanity, and I think that attracts the best talent in your market. I think everybody's longing to work with and for somebody who is human, uh, and treats and understands their humanity, and has that sense of tolerance, and is committed to their success and their development.
I always so I saw this bumper sticker a while ago, and I look at it and I always think that Yoda got it wrong, right? The bumper sticker said, "Don't try, do." And I think
That
I reflect on that at times, and I think, nope, you got it wrong, because
Yeah,
unless you try,
yeah,
you'll never do, right?
yeah.
You will never do it. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Listen, I remember the first time my dad took me for a drive in the family car. I'm 16 years old, and, it was 3 on the column. And
yeah,
I'm going to tell you, I didn't do, but I sure tried. And then my
sure.
dad let me try again and try again and try again. But boy, it took several stalls letting the clutch out too fast, or too much gas, while the clutch is still engaged. There were a lot of tries before I finally got to where I could do it. So I think you're
Correct.
right. I agree with you. Yoda got it wrong. Well, Savas, this has been a great conversation. I could keep this conversation going for hours. I love having conversations with people who are just as passionate and engaged in leadership and culture and developing people as you. And so CAPREIT is lucky to have you,
Oh,
and I
thank
know they're
you.
in capable hands.
I feel lucky to be there. I have such a good team. Our owners, Jen and Andrew, are just wonderful people to work for, and quite honestly work with. Um, so I feel blessed to come into work every single day. And I will leave you with one thing that guides me, and I have it on my monitor. And it is this: is that leadership is not a person or a position. It's a complex moral relationship between people based on trust, obligation, commitment, emotion, and a shared vision of the good. And every time I think about that, the piece that is most impactful to me is the shared vision of the good. And that to me is what culture drives.
Yeah, well said. Well, listen, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. I have enjoyed it tremendously, and I hope that you and I can reconnect at a future date and talk again. I've enjoyed this
Absolutely.
tremendously.
Yeah, yeah, same here. I've enjoyed it. I appreciate you. I appreciate your podcast and everything that you try and do to make the world better.
Well,
Seriously,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Well,
Absolutely.
to our audience, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining another session of Leading Your Culture with Bill Nye. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Leading Your Culture with Bill Nye. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a review, and share it with your network. And remember, this podcast is proudly brought to you by Multifamily Media Network, your trusted source for stories, trends, and insights in multifamily living. I appreciate you checking out my episode. I'm Bill Nye, and this was Leading Your Culture with Bill Nye.